In the world of competitive shooting, there's an unspoken rule. Respect is earned through precision, not through appearance. But sometimes the most extraordinary stories begin in the most ordinary places, like a weathered wooden bench outside a shooting range, where assumptions can shatter faster than clay pigeons in the wind. What happens when a world-class sniper, capable of hitting targets at distances that defy human comprehension, sits quietly among weekend warriors and amateur enthusiasts? What occurs when expertise hides behind an unassuming exterior, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal itself? This is the story of Maya Chen, a woman whose quiet presence at the local shooting range masked one of the most remarkable military records in modern history. It's about the day when ignorance met excellence, when prejudice collided with precision, and when a single measurement, 4,735 meters, changed everything anyone thought they knew about the person sitting alone on that bench. Some stories whisper. This one echoes like a gunshot across an empty valley. Maya Chen arrived at Precision Point Shooting Range every Tuesday morning at exactly 8:30 a.m., carrying a small black duffel bag and wearing the same faded jeans and plain gray hoodie. She would nod politely to whoever was working the front desk, pay for 2 hours of range time, and walk directly to the outdoor section where she claimed the furthest lane available. The other regulars had noticed her months ago, but few bothered to engage. She was small in stature, maybe 5 feet 4 inches, with shoulder-length black hair that she kept tied back in a simple ponytail. Nothing about her appearance suggested she belonged among the serious shooters who frequented Precision Point. The range attracted retired military personnel, law enforcement officers, and competitive shooters who treated their weekly sessions like religious ceremonies. Maya would set up her equipment methodically, laying out what appeared to be a custom rifle that most of the other shooters couldn't quite identify. She never asked for help, never complained about anything, and never seemed interested in the conversations that flowed freely between lanes about military service, hunting expeditions, or competitive achievements. The bench outside the range building became her unofficial waiting area. She would arrive early and sit there quietly, sometimes reading a paperback book, sometimes just watching the morning activity as other shooters prepared for their sessions. The wooden bench, weathered by years of Colorado mountain weather, sat under a small overhang that provided minimal protection from the elements. On this particular Tuesday morning in late October, Maya found herself sharing the bench with 3 men she recognized as regulars but had never spoken to directly. Jack Morrison, a retired Army sergeant with a grey mustache and opinions about everything, sat on the far end scrolling through his phone. Next to him was Pete Kowalski, a local police detective who wore his badge like a conversation starter, and Tom Bradley, a competitive shooter who had won several regional tournaments and never let anyone forget it. The men were deep in discussion about a recent military sniper competition that had been featured in a shooting magazine. Tom was reading aloud from the article on his tablet, his voice carrying the authority of someone who considered himself an expert on the subject. Says, "Here the winning shot was at 2,400 meters, Tom announced, looking up from his screen. That's impressive, but honestly, with today's equipment and perfect conditions, it's not impossible for someone with real training. I could probably manage something like that on a good day. Back in my Army days, we routinely took shots at 1,500 meters. It's all about understanding windage and elevation." Pete leaned back against the bench. The longest confirmed kill shot in military history is still that Canadian sniper's record. What was it, something over 3,500 meters? That's the kind of shooting that separates the professionals from the amateurs. Maya continued reading her book, a worn copy of a mystery novel, but her ears picked up every word of their conversation. She had heard similar discussions dozens of times at ranges across the country. The men spoke with the confidence that comes from theoretical knowledge and limited practical experience, mixing facts with assumptions in ways that would have been amusing if they weren't so predictable. "The thing is," Tom continued, warming to his favorite subject, "modern technology has made these long shots more achievable than people realize. You get the right scope, the right ammunition, factor in atmospheric conditions properly, and suddenly what seemed impossible becomes routine. Still takes real skill, though," Jack added. "And nerves. Most people can't handle the pressure when it counts." Pete glanced around the range and his eyes landed on Maya. "Take someone like her," he said, lowering his voice, but not enough to prevent Maya from hearing. "Probably comes here to plink at targets with a .22 rifle. Nothing wrong with that, but it's a different world from what we're talking about." Maya turned a page in her book without looking up. She had developed a thick skin over the years for this type of commentary. In her experience, the people who talked the most about shooting often had the least practical experience with it. Real professionals tended to be quieter, more focused on continuous improvement rather than past achievements. Tom looked over at Maya's equipment bag sitting beside her on the bench. I wonder what she's got in there. Probably one of those pink rifles they market to women. My wife wanted to try shooting once, and that's exactly what the gun store recommended. The conversation continued in this vein for several more minutes, with the three men sharing their theories about women in shooting sports, military sniping, and the evolution of long-range accuracy. Maya absorbed their comments without reaction, occasionally turning pages in her book while mentally cataloguing the misconceptions and exaggerations in their discussion. When her range time was called, Maya closed her book and stood up, slinging her bag over her shoulder. The three men barely acknowledged her departure, continuing their conversation as she walked toward the range entrance. Inside the range office, Maya signed in with Sarah, the young woman who worked the morning shift and was one of the few people who had ever attempted to engage Maya in conversation. Morning, Maya, Sarah said with a genuine smile. Same as usual. 2 hours, lane 15? That's perfect, thank you, Maya replied. Her voice was soft but clear, with just a hint of an accent that was difficult to place. Sarah had always been curious about Maya's background. The woman was clearly an experienced shooter, based on the equipment she brought and the way she handled herself on the range, but she never participated in any of the social aspects that drew most regulars to Precision Point. We're having our monthly Precision Challenge this weekend, Sarah mentioned as she processed Maya's payment. Entry fee is $50 and there are some nice prizes. The course of fire includes shots out to 800 meters. You should consider entering. Maya smiled politely. Thank you for thinking of me, but I prefer to keep my practice sessions private. Sarah nodded, understanding that some people came to the range for solitude rather than competition. Well, if you change your mind, registration is open until Friday. Maya made her way to lane 15, the furthest position from the main building. The outdoor range at Precision Point extended to 1,000 meters, making it one of the longest civilian ranges in the state. Most shooters never used the full distance, preferring to work at 100 or 200 meters where they could see their target impacts more clearly. She unpacked her equipment with the efficiency of long practice. The rifle that emerged from her case would have surprised anyone who had been paying attention. It was a custom-built precision instrument that had cost more than most people's cars. The scope mounted on top was a military-grade optic that could resolve details at distances that pushed the boundaries of what was theoretically possible. Maya's shooting routine was as methodical as everything else about her range visits. She began with careful inspection of her equipment, checking every component for proper function and alignment. She recorded atmospheric conditions in a small notebook, noting temperature, humidity, wind direction and speed, and barometric pressure. Her first shots of the day were always at close range, using the 100-meter targets to verify her rifle's zero and to warm up her shooting fundamentals. Even at this basic distance, her precision was remarkable. The shots grouped within a circle smaller than a dime, each bullet impact precisely where she had intended. As the morning progressed, Maya gradually moved her targets to longer ranges. She worked systematically through 300 meters, 500 meters, and eventually to the range's maximum distance of 1,000 meters. At each distance, she fired slowly and deliberately, taking time between shots to record data and analyze her performance. Other shooters occasionally glanced over from their own lanes, surprised by the distant targets Maya was engaging and the apparent accuracy of her shots. But the culture of the range discouraged intrusion during serious practice sessions, so she was left alone to work through her routine. By the end of her 2-hour session, Maya had filled several pages in her notebook with data and observations. She cleaned her rifle carefully before packing it away, a ritual that seemed almost meditative in its precision and attention to detail. As she prepared to leave, Maya noticed that the three men from the bench were now setting up in lanes much closer to the building. They were using standard hunting rifles with basic scopes, and their targets were positioned at 100 meters. She watched for a moment as Tom, the one who had been most vocal about his expertise, struggled to achieve consistent grouping even at the relatively short distance. Walking past their lanes on her way out, Maya could hear them continuing their discussion about military sniping and the limits of human accuracy. Their conversation had evolved to include speculation about whether anyone could realistically achieve the long-range shots they had read about in magazines. I bet most of those records are exaggerated, Pete was saying as he examined his target through binoculars. When you factor in all the variables, I doubt anyone is really making consistent hits much past 2,000 meters.
Jack agreed enthusiastically.
The physics just don't work in your favor at those distances. Bullet drop alone would make it nearly impossible, even with perfect equipment. Maya paused near their lane, pretending to adjust something in her bag while listening to their confident assertions about the limitations of long-range shooting. Part of her wanted to engage, to share some of the realities they were getting wrong. But years of experience had taught her that such conversations rarely ended well. Instead, she continued toward the exit, nodding to Sarah on her way out. A young woman looked up from her paperwork with a friendly wave. "Good session today?" Sarah asked. "Very productive, thank you," Maya replied. "Same time next week." As Maya walked toward her car, she could still hear the three men's voices carrying from the outdoor range, now debating whether civilian shooters could ever match military precision. She shook her head slightly, knowing that some lessons could only be learned through experience rather than conversation. Driving home, Maya reflected on the morning session. Her shooting had been solid, with good consistency across all distances. The new load she had been developing for her rifle was showing promise, and her data suggested that further improvements were possible with minor adjustments to her powder charge. More importantly, she had maintained the low profile that allowed her to continue using precision point without complications. The range provided exactly what she needed: long distances, minimal interference, and the opportunity to maintain the skills that had once been the most important part of her professional life. Tomorrow would bring different challenges, but for now, Maya was satisfied with another successful morning of practice. The men on the bench would continue their theoretical discussions, never knowing that the quiet woman they had dismissed carried secrets that would fundamentally change their understanding of what was possible with a rifle and the right training. The afternoon sun climbed higher as Maya drove away from Precision Point, her equipment secure in the back of her modest sedan. Behind her, the range continued its normal rhythm of activity, with shooters testing their skills against targets that seemed impossibly small and distant. None of them suspected that the most accomplished sniper in the facility's history had just finished her session and was already planning her return to the weathered bench where assumptions lived and died with each passing day. 3 weeks passed before Maya encountered the trio again. The weather had turned colder, with morning frost coating the wooden bench and making the metal components of rifles uncomfortably cold to touch. Maya arrived as usual, finding the bench empty except for a coffee cup someone had forgotten. She settled into her customary spot and opened her book, enjoying the relative quiet of the early morning. The range wouldn't open for another 20 minutes, giving her time to read and mentally prepare for her practice session. The sound of truck doors slamming announced the arrival of other early shooters. Maya glanced up to see Jack, Pete, and Tom approaching, their conversation already in full swing despite the early hour. "I'm telling you, it's all about the fundamentals," Tom was saying as they walked toward the bench. "Breathing, trigger control, follow through. Master those basics and everything else falls into place." They settled onto the bench, acknowledging Maya with brief nods before continuing their discussion. Maya noticed that Tom was carrying a new rifle case, significantly larger and more expensive looking than what she had seen him use before. "Finally decided to upgrade," Tom announced, patting the case proudly. "This is a genuine military-spec precision rifle. Same model used by Army snipers. Cost me $8,000. But when you're serious about the sport, you invest in serious equipment." Jack whistled appreciatively. "That's real money. What kind of performance are you expecting?" "The manufacturer guarantees sub-minute of angle accuracy at 1,000 meters," Tom replied. "With the right ammunition and proper setup, this rifle should be capable of hitting a target at any distance this range offers." Pete leaned forward with interest. "You planning to test it at the full 1,000 meters today?" "Absolutely. I want to see what this baby can really do. The guy at the gun store said several military units use this exact configuration. If it's good enough for professional snipers, it should be more than adequate for civilian precision shooting." Maya continued reading while listening to their conversation. She recognized the rifle model Tom was describing. It was indeed used by some military units, though not in the configuration he had purchased. The civilian version lacked several critical features that made the military variant truly effective at extreme ranges. "Speaking of military snipers," Jack said, pulling out his phone, "I was reading about this exercise they did last year. Sniper teams from different countries competing against each other. The winning shot was over 2,800 meters. Now that's what I call precision shooting." Tom said admiringly. Though, I'd bet with the right equipment and enough practice, a civilian shooter could achieve similar results. These military guys aren't superhuman. Pete nodded in agreement. The main advantage they have is unlimited ammunition for practice and access to the best equipment. Level the playing field, and I think you'd see civilian shooters matching their performance. Maya turned a page in her book, fighting the urge to correct their misconceptions. Military sniper training involved far more than equipment and ammunition. The psychological conditioning, tactical awareness, and ability to perform under extreme stress were elements that couldn't be replicated in civilian shooting sports. I'm actually thinking about entering some long-range competitions this year, Tom continued. With this new rifle, I should be competitive against anyone. The local shooting community needs to see what serious equipment can accomplish in the right hands. The range office opened, and other shooters began arriving for their sessions. Maya closed her book and prepared to check in, but the conversation beside her continued. You know what would be interesting, Pete said thoughtfully. Setting up our own long-range challenge. See who among the regulars can make the most impressive shot. Make it worth something, like $100 entry fee and winner takes all. Tom's eyes lit up with interest. I love that idea. We could set targets at maximum range and see who can get closest to center. Put some real money behind it to make it interesting. Jack was already warming to the concept. We should include some of the other guys who think they're hot shots. That former Marine who comes in on weekends. The police instructor who runs those tactical courses. Make it a real test of who's got the skills to back up their talk. What about her? Pete asked quietly, glancing toward Maya as she stood to leave for the check-in counter. Should we invite everyone who shoots here regularly? Tom looked over at Maya dismissively. I suppose we should be inclusive. Though, honestly, this is going to be serious competition. We're talking about maximum range precision shooting, not plinking at close targets. It might be educational for her, Jack said. Good way to see what real precision shooting looks like. Could inspire her to improve her own skills. Maya walked past them toward the range office, their words following her clearly. The assumption that she would benefit from watching their demonstration of real precision shooting was both amusing and irritating. Sarah greeted her with the usual warm smile. Morning, Maya. Lane 15 again? Yes, please. 2 hours as usual. As Sarah processed her paperwork, Maya noticed Tom and his companions entering behind her. They were discussing the logistics of their proposed shooting challenge, debating entry fees and target distances. We'll need to make sure everyone understands this is serious competition, Tom was saying. Long-range precision shooting requires specialized skills. Not everyone is going to be capable of meaningful participation. Maya completed her check-in and headed to her lane, passing the group as they continued planning their challenge. She could hear Tom explaining the technical specifications of his new rifle to anyone within earshot, clearly excited about the opportunity to demonstrate its capabilities. At lane 15, Maya unpacked her equipment with her usual methodical approach. The morning air was crisp enough to see her breath, requiring extra attention to scope adjustments and ammunition temperature. Cold weather affected everything from bullet velocity to scope tracking, adding layers of complexity to precision shooting. Her warm-up routine proceeded normally, with excellent groups at 100 and 300 meters. As she moved to longer ranges, Maya became aware of activity in the lanes closer to the building. Tom had set up his new rifle and was attracting a small crowd of observers interested in seeing the expensive equipment in action. Maya watched peripherally as Tom prepared for his first shots at 1,000 meters. The rifle was indeed impressive looking, with a large scope and precision stock that suggested serious intent. However, Maya could see several setup issues that would affect accuracy at long range. Tom's shooting position wasn't optimized for stability, and his scope appeared to be mounted too high for efficient alignment. Most critically, he was using factory ammunition that wasn't matched to his rifle's specific characteristics. These details would become crucial at maximum range, where small errors magnified dramatically. The first shot at 1,000 meters produced a miss with no visible impact on the target. Tom adjusted his scope and tried again, with similar results. After several more attempts, he managed to hit the target frame, but nowhere near the center. Just getting the feel for the new equipment, Tom announced to his audience. These precision rifles require some adjustment time to achieve their full potential. Maya continued her own practice, working methodically through her data collection and accuracy assessment. Her shots at 1,000 meters were consistently hitting within a few inches of her intended point of impact, performance that would have impressed the growing crowd around Tom's lane if they had been paying attention. During a break in her shooting, Maya overheard Tom discussing the challenge idea with other range users. Several experienced shooters had expressed interest, including Mike Rodriguez, the former Marine Pete had mentioned, and Dave Chen, a local police instructor known for his precision rifle courses. "We're thinking maximum range shots, winner determined by closest to center," Tom explained. "Entry fee of $100, winner takes the pot. Should be interesting to see who's got real long-range capability." Mike Rodriguez seemed intrigued but cautious. 1,000 meters is serious distance. Are we talking about single shots or multiple attempts? "I'm thinking 3 shots, best one counts," Tom replied. "That way, it's not just luck, but also not so many shots that it becomes expensive for ammunition." Dave Chen nodded approvingly. "That's reasonable. When are you thinking of holding this? I'd want some time to practice at maximum range before committing money to it." "Next month sometime," Tom said. "Give everyone time to prepare and work up loads for their rifles. Make it a real test of equipment and skill." Maya listened to the planning continue while cleaning her rifle. The challenge was taking shape as a legitimate competition with several skilled participants. Part of her was curious about how it would unfold, particularly given the confidence levels she was observing among the organizers. As she prepared to leave, Maya noticed that Tom was still struggling with his 1,000-meter shots. Despite the expensive rifle and growing audience, his accuracy remained inconsistent. The equipment was capable of precision, but the shooter's technique wasn't matching the rifle's potential. Walking past the group on her way out, Maya heard Tom making excuses about ammunition compatibility and the need for load development. "Give me a few weeks to work up the perfect cartridge for this rifle, and you'll see what military-grade precision really looks like," he was telling his listeners. At the check-in counter, Sarah looked up from her computer with interest. "I hear there's talk about organizing a long-range shooting challenge. Are you planning to participate?" Maya paused, considering her response. "I heard some discussion about it. Sounds like they're still working out the details." "It could be really exciting," Sarah continued. "We don't get many formal competitions here, and the people talking about it seem serious about making it a real test of shooting skills." "We'll see how it develops," Maya replied diplomatically. Driving home, Maya reflected on the morning's events. The proposed challenge represented exactly the kind of situation she normally avoided. Public competition would inevitably lead to questions about her background and experience, potentially compromising the anonymity she had worked to maintain. On the other hand, the assumptions and overconfidence she had witnessed were becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. Tom's certainty about civilian capabilities matching military performance, combined with his actual shooting results, highlighted a disconnect between theory and reality that might benefit from correction. Maya had spent years avoiding attention and maintaining a low profile. The price of that anonymity was watching misconceptions perpetuate and listening to people make claims about subjects they didn't truly understand. The challenge represented an opportunity to address those misconceptions directly, though at considerable personal risk. The decision wouldn't be easy. Maya had legitimate reasons for avoiding public attention, reasons that went beyond simple preference for privacy. But the temptation to demonstrate what real precision shooting looked like was growing stronger with each conversation she overheard. As she pulled into her driveway, Maya found herself imagining how the challenge might unfold. 3 shots at maximum range, winner determined by closest to center. It was a simple format that would quickly separate real capability from good equipment and confident talk. The question wasn't whether she could win such a competition. Maya's skills at 1,000 meters were at a level that would surprise everyone at Precision Point. The question was whether revealing those skills was worth the complications that would inevitably follow. Inside her small apartment, Maya opened her shooting notebook and reviewed the day's data. Her accuracy had been excellent across all ranges, with no signs of the performance degradation she sometimes worried about. Despite years away from active duty, her fundamental skills remained sharp and reliable. The notebook contained more than just shooting data. It included observations about other range users, notes about their equipment and capabilities, and assessments of their actual versus perceived skill levels. Tom and his companions featured prominently in recent entries, their conversations providing insight into the broader civilian shooting community's understanding of precision marksmanship. Maya closed the notebook and sat back in her chair, weighing options that would have significant consequences regardless of which path she chose. The quiet life she had built around anonymous practice sessions was comfortable and safe, but safety had never been her highest priority, and the growing temptation to correct dangerous misconceptions was becoming harder to resist with each passing week. The challenge was officially announced 2 weeks later. Through a flyer posted on the range's bulletin board, entry fee was set at $100, with the winner taking 70% of the pot and second place receiving 30%. The competition would consist of 3 shots at 1,000 meters, with the best single shot determining the winner. Maya read the announcement during her usual Tuesday morning visit, noting that 12 shooters had already signed up. The list included several names she recognized as accomplished local shooters, along with Tom, Pete, and Jack. The competition was scheduled for the following Saturday morning, with registration closing Friday afternoon. Sarah noticed Maya studying the announcement. Thinking about entering? It would be great to see some diversity in the competition. So far, it's all guys who'd been talking about their shooting skills for years. I'm still considering it, Maya replied carefully. It sounds like a serious group of competitors. Oh, it is. Tom's been here every day this week practicing with his new rifle. He's convinced he's going to dominate the competition. Some of the other guys are taking it pretty seriously too. Maya could see Tom at lane 5, working with his expensive precision rifle. His technique had improved slightly since their first encounter, but he was still making fundamental errors that would become critical at maximum range. His confidence, however, appeared undiminished. During her own practice session, Maya found herself unconsciously preparing for the challenge. She tested different ammunition loads, verified her scope tracking at various ranges, and conducted the kind of detailed equipment check she hadn't done since leaving active duty. Her performance at 1,000 meters remained exceptional. 3 consecutive shots grouped within a 2-inch circle, precision that would have impressed even her former military colleagues. The muscle memory and mental discipline developed over years of professional training showed no signs of deterioration. Friday morning arrived with Maya still undecided about participation. She sat on the bench outside the range, watching the final day of practice before the challenge. Several competitors were making last-minute equipment adjustments, testing different ammunition, and engaging in the nervous banter that preceded any serious competition. Tom walked past the bench carrying his rifle case, confidence radiating from his stride. He nodded to Maya politely before joining his usual group near the range entrance. Tomorrow's going to separate the real shooters from the wannabes, Tom announced loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear. I've been working with this rifle for a month now, and it's performing exactly to military specifications. Should be quite an educational experience for some people. Jack nodded enthusiastically. I'm curious to see how some of the other guys handle the pressure. It's one thing to shoot well when it's just practice, but putting money on the line changes everything. The psychological element is huge in precision shooting, Pete added. Military snipers spend as much time on mental conditioning as physical training. That's what separates the professionals from the amateurs. Maya listened to their confident predictions while making her final decision. The combination of overconfidence and fundamental misunderstanding had reached a level that demanded correction. More importantly, she realized she was genuinely curious to see how her current abilities compared to civilian competition standards. Walking into the range office, Maya found Sarah processing last-minute challenge registrations. I'd like to enter the competition tomorrow, Maya said quietly. Sarah looked up with genuine surprise and pleasure. That's wonderful. I was hoping you'd decide to participate. It'll be great to have at least one woman in the competition. Maya completed the registration paperwork, noting that her entry brought the total to 13 competitors. The entry fee seemed insignificant compared to the potential consequences of her decision, but there was no turning back now. Any special equipment requirements I should know about? Maya asked. Nothing beyond what you normally bring, Sarah replied. The rules are pretty simple. 3 shots at 1,000 meters, best single shot wins. Targets will be standard precision shooting targets with clearly marked scoring rings. Saturday morning dawned cold and clear, with minimal wind and excellent visibility. Maya arrived to find the parking lot fuller than she had ever seen it, with competitors and spectators gathering for the challenge. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation and friendly rivalry. The shooting order was determined by random draw, with Maya selected to shoot 7th out of 13 competitors. This positioned her in the middle of the field, allowing her to observe several other shooters before her turn, while avoiding the pressure of shooting first or last. Tom drew the second position, clearly pleased with his early opportunity to set a standard for the rest of the competitors. "Good to get my shots in before the wind picks up," he announced. This rifle performs best in calm conditions. The first competitor was Mike Rodriguez, the former Marine who had developed a reputation for steady performance. His shots were respectable but not exceptional, with his best impact approximately 8 inches from center. Tom approached the line with visible confidence, taking extra time to set up his equipment and verify his shooting position. His first shot at 1,000 meters missed the target completely, surprising everyone including Tom himself. "Just a warm-up shot," Tom called out, though his voice carried less confidence than usual. His second shot hit the target, but well outside the scoring rings. The third shot was better, landing about 14 inches from center. "Not my best performance," Tom admitted as he collected his equipment. This rifle needs more load development to reach its full potential. The competition continued with mixed results. Most shooters managed to hit the target consistently, but precision at 1,000 meters proved challenging for even the experienced competitors. The best performance through 6 shooters belonged to Dave Chen, whose best shot landed approximately 5 inches from center. Maya's turn arrived with the crowd curious about her performance. She had drawn attention as the only woman competitor, and several spectators were making quiet predictions about her likely results. Setting up her equipment, Maya went through her pre-shot routine with practiced efficiency. Her rifle drew some attention from knowledgeable observers who recognized quality equipment when they saw it. The scope alone was worth more than most competitors' complete setups. Maya's first shot at 1,000 meters landed exactly where she had intended, within 2 inches of center. The impact was clearly visible through spotting scopes, generating murmurs of appreciation from the watching crowd. Her second shot grouped closely with the first, confirming that the initial precision wasn't accidental. The third shot completed a group that would have been impressive at any distance, let alone 1,000 meters. "Excellent shooting," Dave Chen commented as Maya cleared the line. "That's the kind of precision we've been trying to achieve all morning." The remaining competitors shot with the knowledge that Maya had set an extremely high standard. Several managed respectable performances, but none came close to matching her precision at maximum range. When the final scorer announced the results, Maya had won decisively with her best shot measuring 1.8 inches from center. Dave Chen finished second at 4.9 inches, with Mike Rodriguez taking third place. The crowd gathered around the results board, studying the measurements with obvious amazement. Maya's performance had exceeded everyone's expectations, including her own initial conservative estimates. "That's some of the finest shooting I've ever witnessed," Dave Chen announced publicly. "Maya, where did you develop those skills? That level of precision suggests serious training and experience." Maya found herself the center of attention in a way she had carefully avoided for years. The direct question about her background was exactly what she had been trying to prevent, but the time for anonymity had clearly passed. "I had some military training," Maya said simply, hoping to minimize further inquiry. Tom approached with his usual confidence, somewhat diminished, but his curiosity clearly aroused. "What branch of service?" That shooting was definitely beyond standard military qualification levels. "Army," Maya replied, knowing that additional details would be requested regardless of her preferences.
What was your military occupation?
Dave Chen asked. As a police instructor, he was familiar with various levels of military marksmanship training. Maya hesitated, aware that her response would fundamentally change her relationship with everyone at the range. "I was a sniper." The crowd grew quiet as people processed this information. Military snipers were rare enough that most civilians never encountered them, making Maya an object of considerable curiosity and respect. "Active duty or reserves?" Mike Rodriguez asked with the interest of one veteran speaking to another. "Active duty, special operations." Pete stepped forward with obvious fascination. "What was your longest confirmed shot?" "We were just talking about military sniper records a few weeks ago." Maya looked around at the expectant faces surrounding her. The question was inevitable, and she had already crossed the line into public disclosure. 4,735 meters. She said quietly. The number hung in the air like a physical presence. Several people checked their hearing, certain they had misunderstood. 4,735 meters was beyond anything they had discussed or imagined possible. Tom was the first to find his voice. "That's almost 3 miles. Are you saying you made a confirmed shot at nearly 3 miles? Combat situation in Afghanistan? Elevated position? Perfect atmospheric conditions? Target acquisition through intelligence assets? Dave Chen was calculating distances in his head. That's more than 4 times the distance we just shot. How is that even possible? Specialized equipment, extensive training, and circumstances that rarely align perfectly, Maya replied. It's not something that can be replicated in civilian shooting. The crowd began asking technical questions about equipment, ballistics, and the tactical situation that had made such a shot possible. Maya answered carefully, providing enough information to satisfy curiosity, without revealing classified details. Sarah pushed through the crowd with Maya's prize money and a huge smile. I knew there was something special about you. All those quiet practice sessions at maximum range suddenly make perfect sense. Tom stood quietly at the edge of the group, his expensive rifle and confident predictions now seeming naive in comparison to Maya's demonstrated capabilities. I apologize for some of our comments over the past few months, he said finally. We clearly didn't understand who we were talking about. No offense taken, Maya replied. I prefer to keep my background private, but sometimes situations develop beyond what we can control. Mike Rodriguez nodded understandingly. Operational security becomes a habit that's hard to break even in civilian life. Thank you for sharing your experience with us. The crowd gradually dispersed as people returned to their own shooting activities, though many continued to glance toward Maya with obvious curiosity and respect. The dynamic at Precision Point had changed permanently, with Maya's anonymity replaced by recognition as the most accomplished shooter in the facility's history. During the drive home, Maya reflected on the morning's events. The challenge had accomplished exactly what she had hoped. Correcting misconceptions about military versus civilian capabilities while demonstrating what real precision shooting looked like. However, the cost had been the quiet anonymity that had allowed her to practice without complications. Her Tuesday morning routine would continue, but the conversations on the bench would never be the same. The men who had dismissed her capabilities based on appearance would now treat her with the respect her skills deserved, while other shooters would inevitably seek her advice and instruction. Maya smiled slightly as she considered this new reality. Perhaps it was time to emerge from the shadows and share some of the knowledge she had accumulated over years of professional training. The shooting community could benefit from exposure to real precision techniques, and she might find satisfaction in teaching others to achieve their potential. The weathered bench outside Precision Point would continue to host conversations about shooting and military capabilities, but now those discussions would include someone who could speak from direct experience rather than magazine articles and theoretical knowledge. As Maya pulled into her driveway, she realized that her attempt to correct a few misconceptions had fundamentally changed her civilian life. The quiet observer who had sat unnoticed on the bench for months was gone, replaced by someone who would forever be known as the woman who mentioned 4,735 meters and then proved she could back up every word.